All right, we are live, and I'm excited to bring you guys today's guest. So on today's episode, I interview a Puerto Rico-based fitness trainer, Sweat It Out podcast co-host, 10,000 athlete, and creator of the soon-to-launch Active Made Easy program. Welcome to the Winner Circle, Josh Evans.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it. What's up, everyone?
Great to have you on, Josh. And so we were just talking about before this podcast how there's so much chaos going on in the world still, in Puerto Rico, in Miami, in Winnipeg, where I'm based out of. And this podcast isn't really about that. This is meant to uplift, inspire, and empower others. So I start things off with a really light question, and that is, what do you love about your world right now, Josh Evans?
Man, that's such a great question to kick things off with, man. I appreciate you asking that. I really think it's the abundance, right? The abundance of opportunity that's in front of me that I can take hold of, right? If I put forth the right plan and I follow through with my actions, right? I really feel like there's ample opportunities for me to be able to grow as a person, grow as, participant in the relationships that I take part in, and along with my business. Abundance, I think, is the key word for the rest of 2021.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into your businesses and the various projects you're involved with, I feel an important question to ask guests, which really helps listeners know who I'm talking to, is asking them about our mission. And our mission is something that encompasses all that we do, not just our professional projects, but our personal relationships and everywhere in between. And it's always changing. But right here, right now, Josh, what is your mission in this reality plane that we inhabit?
I mean, my mission really in life, and it's been this for quite a few years now. And I think I've had the blessing to be able to take a step back and refine it over time. But it really is to, help people maximize their potential, maximize their opportunities, by seeing the simple actions that they can take in order to reduce the stress of actually going down that path and taking those actions, and making time for themselves, right, to be able to invest in what they want to invest in, right? Again, whether it be family, friendships, their business, or their personal health, right? Being able to understand that it doesn't take a lot to get a lot out of it, right? And I think as we, move through life, we really realize that, it's all how we use our time. You and I have the same 24 hours in the day. We might go about things differently throughout that 24 hours, but how we utilize each and every one of those hours, I think, is extremely important for us to be able to really, I'm going to use this word again, abundance, right? To be able to understand and feel that abundance in our lives.
Mm-hmm. And I think really important in this is recognizing that this is a process, not a destination. And that's really what this podcast is about. It's called Welcome to the Winner Circle. And to me, winning means just enjoying the now, embracing the process rather than the destination. We live in a very destination-oriented society. When I get this X thing, this car, this house, this relationship, or when I lose this amount of weight, or when I do this, I'll be happy. But it's about the process. That's what winning means to me. And I'd just be curious to hear what winning means to you, because in my eyes, you're a true winner yourself.
I appreciate that, man. And same to you. Obviously we've been able to connect in the past in Austin, and what a great experience to be able to share with you and so many others that we were able to. And, you mentioned winning. I like to refer to it as wealth, right? I feel like we can all be wealthy, right? And wealth, like you said, shows up in a lot of different ways. It's not always about getting the Ferrari or having the mansion, right? But again, the experiences that we're able to go through, right, that really show us what exactly it is we want, and I think when you can be able to take that step back and be able to assess, the bountiful things that you have in your life, it makes it a lot easier to deflect or, move past these artificial barriers that we set in front of ourselves, right? And to be able to create that wealth, first in our mind, and then in our environment with the actions that we take.
Absolutely. So what does your wealthy life look like for you today, Josh, in all dimensions?
I mean, I would say, number one, freedom of time. I think time is the most valuable asset, as for any single person living on this earth. It's the only one that we really can't control, or we don't have any control over, right? All of our clocks are ticking, and being able to be free and be able to make decisions for myself and be able to make decisions for my family is paramount in my life, right? And then that would be followed by, freedom of finances, right? Being able to do the things that I want to do with my money and make my money work for me, so I can then be able to even have more time to go and spend with those that I truly care about.
Mm-hmm. So what about your professional projects? What does your wealthy this look like in your professional life? What are you involved with in that sector?
Right. I mean, you mentioned my new program. I'd love to get into that in a little bit, and the podcast, Sweat It Out. I think being able to show people that there are ways in which that they can accomplish what they want to accomplish, right? Like, I don't necessarily set financial goals when it comes to business, although I do think those are important. They're not my main focus. My main focus is really getting out there and helping as many people understand that they can do more with less, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to wait for the perfect time, because there really is no perfect time. The best time for you to start is right now, so that you can learn from experience. You can learn from failure. You can learn from your wins, right? And be able to build upon those wins and be able to assess the failures and see what didn't go the way you thought it was going to go, so that you can make those improvements and turn those failures into wins, right? Mm-hmm. And when it comes to health and fitness, right, that's obviously what I am. I'm a health and fitness coach online. And I really tend to find out that people feel like they're on an island, right? Like, let's say you go through my program and you're successful and you lose 30 pounds, or you build the muscle you want, you gain the confidence that you truly believe that you need to go out there and do the things you want. And then I go and use you as a testimonial to someone else. And they're like, well, it worked for Derek, but I just don't think it's going to work for me. Well, why don't you think it's going to work for you, right? Do you think it's because you're this anomaly in the world of people who, are able to achieve what they want to achieve and so much more? Or is it because of this narrative, again, these constructs that you form inside of your head that are really stopping you from being able to see what your true value is and what your true potential might be in the future?
Mm-hmm. So before we get into your Active Made Easy program, which pertains to a lot of things we just talked about, and even your podcast, let's trace things back. Like, let's hit a rewind button. Let's get back to your origin story. How did you get to where you are today? Not only in the health and fitness world, but the wellness world in general.
Oh man, what a long road it's been, man. And quite a great one at that, right? Over the past 12 years of really being inside of fitness, but it even started before that, right? It started when I was in high school, right? In secondary school for you guys, I believe.
Yeah.
I wasn't very confident at all. And it's difficult, I understand, for people to think, but I was very overweight as a kid, right? And very self-conscious about myself because of my weight. I was upwards of 230 pounds, or, slightly over 100 kilos for people listening in Canada. And at 5'10", that really doesn't, I didn't really have the stature to be able to fill out that amount of weight, right? Which made me very self-conscious about myself. And the community I grew up in is very small. I cherished, the community. It really taught me a lot. But in the moment, it felt very daunting to have to, live around a bunch of people who weren't uplifting me, right? Who weren't making me feel good about myself, when I really needed that hand to help guide me through that tough time, right? And it meant that I had to figure out a lot of things on my own. Not saying that everything I had to figure out on my own. I did have some great people in my corner, or I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today, but a lot of self-discovery, right? A lot of questioning what makes people project their feelings on you, right? As someone who might be a little more vulnerable, right? obviously your podcast is a great example of how vulnerability, right, can really lead to success, right? When you're able to truly look inside yourself and find out who you are and be comfortable expressing that, right? Great things can happen. But when you're younger, when you're in your adolescence, like it can be very difficult, right? To feel like you can be yourself when there's so many people telling you to fit into these norms, right? And when you're in a small community, those norms might not align with who you really want to be or what you really see yourself doing in the future. That was tough for me early on, right? Like I said, though, luckily I was able to have a couple people within the school system who were in my corner, who were there to tell me, like, you know, as I like to put, you got to just tread water, right? Before you can start swimming those miles. Sometimes you got to get through the treacherous water to be able to free yourself and feel alive. And because of those people, you know, I was able to get myself in a position where I could, you know, go to a great university and then on to get my master's degree in exercise science, where I was able to really learn from some of the best people in the health and fitness industry in their respective parts of the industry. And it was there where I was really able to find myself and learn how to start the process of becoming a good coach, right? Start the process of becoming a professional with inside of health and fitness. And then moving on into like really jump starting my career. I worked for Equinox, which if anyone lives in a big city, you probably know what Equinox is, a huge corporate health and fitness club, wellness club. And it was a great start to my career. But again, I felt like I was missing that one thing, right? I felt like I was missing that autonomy that I needed to be able to move myself to a point where I did have freedom of time. I did have freedom of finances. I wasn't relying on other people for a paycheck. And that's when I decided in 2018 to, go out on my own, start my own personal training business. I did one-on-one and small group coaching for about 3 years. And over the pandemic, right? And we were talking before the podcast about, again, it gave me a sense of opportunity to say, okay, I don't necessarily want to be training people one-on-one anymore. I feel like there's a better way for my gifts to be displayed and to be able to help people. And that was through online coaching, right? And shifting more from the day-to-day work of, making sure that your deadlift looked good and making sure that your squat looked good. And all those things are important. But to me, what's more important is like what's between your ears, right? Like the thoughts that you're thinking that are getting in your way of finding your own success and being able to do things on your own, right? Having a massive background in education that I do, right? And having had those teachers that really helped me, figure things out for myself by asking me great questions, by having, very difficult conversations with me and being honest with me about where my progress was or where they thought I could be. I wanted to start doing that, and I wanted to start having those conversations with people. And I don't think that there's any better place, as we're doing right now, than in the online space to be able to have difficult conversations and to be able to, really help people understand that if they want to make change in their life, they have to take control of their actions. They have to be the ones to move the needle forward.
Absolutely. And that leads to your Active Made Easy program that's soon to launch. And tell us about that. Like, what does that program entail?
I would love it. So in general, it's a 12-week online program focused around mindset. So how do we shift your beliefs from ones that hold you back to ones that liberate you and allow you to see the opportunity in front of you, right? The opportunity to grow, the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to be successful. And we do that by truly establishing what the reason you wanted to make this shift, make this change in the first place, right? That true why. And once you have that established, and that's so important, right? Because you're not always going to be hyper motivated. You're not always going to feel like you can run through a brick wall, but something has to keep you going, right? Something has to keep you focused on what you need to accomplish. And that's really where that why comes into place, right? From there, we can really establish quality goals that give you a plan of action, right? Give you a generalized concept of what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, how you should be doing it, so that you can hold yourself accountable, right? I think accountability really lacks today because it's much easier to find scapegoats in the world, right? Like, oh, this person has more wealth than me, or, they were able to, go to college for free, or, I didn't grow up there this way or that way, and I've been there myself, right? But it was really when I started to hold myself accountable to the actions, to the things really I wasn't doing, even though I was talking all this talk and saying I was going to do all these great things, I was getting in my own way. It wasn't any of the people around me that I was trying to make excuses for why they were successful, right? They were just doing the things that I wasn't ready to do, the day-to-day monotonous things that really, over time build and lead to, the success that we want. So once I was able to hold that accountability, it opened up a lot of doors for me. And I want to show people that. How I do that, right, coming from a health and fitness background, is make sure people understand the importance of mastering their daily routines, right? Making sure that they set boundaries for themselves with their time, right? And that they're very disciplined with their time so that they can have more freedom to go out there and think about things that are going to, uplift them and drive them to where they really want to go, instead of having to remember like, oh, well, did I say I was going to do this? And not like, no. If you say you're going to do something, put it in your calendar and get it done, right? And if you don't get it done, well, then we can have a discussion about, well, what happened to make it so that you weren't able to accomplish that, right? But if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And we don't necessarily want that. So mastering your schedule and mastering those daily routines, super important. Building that foundation of having a quality schedule, of having discipline with your routines, culminates into, okay, are you getting daily movement in, right? You and I both understand the benefit of exercise. You've been doing great things in your community, helping people move a lot more, especially I know you were working with kids on meditation, and that's just mind movement, mental movement, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And for me, the physical act of moving, right, builds more confidence. The better you look, the better you feel, the better you move, the more confident, the taller you stand, the more proud your chest is, the more inviting you are to other people, right? We were talking about opening up doors in the future for ourselves, right? If you're hunched over and you feel like you don't look the way you should, or even like physically you don't feel well, right? It's going to be the opposite of inviting for most people, right? If I come to you like this, I'm like, hey, Derek, like, how you doing today? Well, could be better for me. You're not necessarily going to believe in me, because you can see I don't really believe in myself, because I'm not doing the things I need to do to stand proud, right? To be proud of my actions, to be certain about the path I'm taking. Maybe not the end result, but the path I'm taking, right? So when we can take care of ourselves physically, and we can focus on, using practices like meditation, like breath work, to help with the mental side of things, along with, shifting those limiting beliefs, we can foster a better future for ourselves, right? And I also include nutritional coaching into that, because if you're not eating well, right, if you're not putting things of quality into your body, then performing at that level is going to be even more difficult, right? So we need to make sure that we're eating healthy, that we're drinking a lot of water, lots of fruits and vegetables. If you eat, animal protein, you're getting lean protein in, very high quality protein. If you are vegetarian or vegan, making sure that you're finding that balance with those vegetarian or vegan options, super important. So just being able to take a much more holistic approach to health and wellness, right? To getting the body and the mind that you want. Because again, it starts up here. Being able to get both of those things moving on all cylinders, right, is really what the Active Made Easy program is about. And doing so in a way that doesn't take hours and hours of your time, right? You don't need to be, meal prepping for 4 hours to be able to make healthy meals every night. You don't need to be in the gym for 3 hours a day, killing yourself in order to see the success that you want and lose the weight or build the muscle. You just have to be doing the right things at the right time and find that approach that works for you. So that's really what the Active Made Easy program is about. Finding a way to be more active in your day-to-day life in a simple approach, by taking simple actions that, again, as you build upon them, really lead to this abundant lifestyle that we're looking for.
Yeah. And for this 12-week program, who do you feel is your ideal client? Who will this 12-week program suit best?
It's for any high achiever, anyone who is already, moving their life in the right direction, financially, professionally, in other relationships, but they just are missing that integral piece of investing in themselves, right? Of setting the boundaries with their calendar and with their time so that they do have time to put into themselves, right? Because the more you pour into yourself, the more experience, the more confidence, the more knowledge that you can pour into others, right?
Yeah.
And without all those three things, right, I really think you're not going to be able to reach your full potential and optimize your life in a way that is sustainable for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked about your foundational kind of self-care elements with the movement, the meditation, nutrition, sleep, and you've mentioned boundaries a few times now. So what are the foundational boundaries that you hold for yourself?
Ooh, man, you got some great questions today, man. I love this. I'm gonna steal some of these from my podcast. One, again, it comes to my calendar, right? So one of my main boundaries is, I start work at 10 a.m. and I finish work at 5 p.m. I don't adjust that for anybody, right? The time I spend before that is taking care of my health, first and foremost, right? Making sure I get in some mobility training first thing in the morning, making sure I get a couple glasses of water in, making sure I get my workout in, making sure I go for a walk with my significant other so her and I can have some time together before I go and start giving time to other people, right? My clients or on things like podcasts. And then, if I set something in my calendar, like we have this podcast, right? I'm going to show up, 5 minutes early. I'm going to make sure I give my full attention and my full intention into what I'm doing for that given time so that I don't have to worry about, well, I'm not putting forth the effort I thought I was going to, or it's going to take longer. Like, no, if we're going to be on this podcast for an hour, I'm going to be on this podcast for an hour and I'm going to give it everything I have. And as long as I do that every day, I can go to bed feeling great about myself.
Mm-hmm. And you've learned many of these lessons that you've talked about through various mentors and helpers you've met along the way. And these mentors and helpers, they showed up in your schooling. You mentioned a few that helped you when you were overweight and being bullied in school, and they gave you that light. And then throughout your progression, you've met other light bearers on the path. So let's take a moment to acknowledge some of those mentors and helpers. Who were they? And what were your notable takeaways that you've learned from them that you've incorporated into your being?
I mean, some of the ones that stick out early in my career, right, from especially when I was in high school going through such a tough time. I had one teacher, she was in the business department. Her name's Carolyn Delaney. Shout out to you, Carolyn. I still, to this day, I graduated in 2009. To this day, we still talk at least twice a year on each one of our birthdays, just going back and forth, sharing stories. When I go back home, we still talk. We get together for dinner, for lunch, and have a great time. She's one of them, right? And she really taught me compassion. Like it's okay to feel, down. It's okay to, feel like the world is against you. But at the end of the day, feel compassionate for those who are out there looking for, your best interest. Another guy, Thomas Shear, he was the one that really got me into fitness, right? Like I said, I was very, I lacked self-confidence early on, and he picked up on that. So we had like 2 periods of time where we had like after school buses that would take you home. One from, school ended at 2:30. There was buses that take you home at 2:30, but if you had extracurriculars, like you wanted to use the gym, there was one that left at 3:30, and then there's one that left at 6. He would see me wait around the gym until about 4 when all those first people would clear out. And then it would just really be me and him. And after a while of him noticing, like I would just like kind of sit outside. I would do my homework where he's like, hey man, you're always here. Like, why don't you come in here? I'll teach you some things, but I can tell you're like uncomfortable being around these other kids. Just do your homework until like 3:45, come in here, the gym will clear out and you and I can work together. And that was really where I found like, man, like, this health and fitness thing, this health and wellness thing can really impact people's lives so much more than like their body, right? So much more than, just how they look or how they might feel on the outside, but, internally inside of their mental health, it can take people pretty far. And then obviously, in my professional level, working with some of the strength coaches that I did at Syracuse and at FAU, you know, they were great educators, and they really taught me how to be a professional in health and fitness, right? And then I would say the number one help that I had, you know, early in my career, helping people one-on-one, not in like a group athletic setting, was this coach who's still in Miami to this day, still talk to him, Kavan Daly. Really showed me, actually introduced me into Animal Flow and steel clubs, and that's how I got introduced into On It, right? Which completely changed the way I thought about health and the way I thought about training. And if I don't think I would have, or if I would have never met him, I don't think I would have veered down that path of understanding that, you know, it wasn't just about the numbers on your sheet or the numbers on the scale, but that there was, again, so much more to this health and fitness thing. And I'm blessed to have been in front of all those people, and to everyone who I didn't name. You guys know who you are. You know, it doesn't go unrecognized.
Absolutely. And one of those unnamed is Anthony Mendez, your business partner and your co-host of your podcast. What's that?
What a legend.
Yes. So let's talk about him and your podcast. So how did this podcast come about, which you're now recorded, I think 154 episodes, and spoke to many other helpers and mentors that inspired you over this last year and a half. So how did that come about, and what have been your key takeaways and learnings from that experience?
Kind of like yourself, right? We started in the middle of 2020. We launched our first episode May 5th of 2020. We've been talking about it for years, right? About, oh, we should start a podcast. We should do that. You know, we had done a couple like large scale fitness events together at hotels and various locations in Miami. And we'd always talk like, oh, we got to do a podcast together. We got to start, you know, building that. We had a great connection, and obviously we vibe with each other very well. And is that a Mr. Rogers cup, by the way?
Yeah, it is. That's one of my mentors and one of my heroes.
I love that. That's great. I saw that. I'm like, man, that's Mr. Rogers. I love that stuff. You know, but back to it. It finally came a time, right, where we had to put our actions where our mouth was, right? And during the pandemic, as I stated before, it really gave us an opportunity to see the abundance or the opportunities that were available to us moving forward. We were both kind of sitting at homes. He was in South Miami and I was on South Beach. And we were sitting around just, you know, obviously working on our businesses, but had a lot more free time than we would have had if we were training clients in person and you know, running around and taking meetings. So I said, hey, like, while we're sitting at home, why don't we just start this thing and we'll throw out audio only versions until we could get, you know, a studio, which luckily we were able to get a couple months after we launched. And then we started the video, but it was just about, let's utilize this opportunity. Let's utilize the time that we have to not only benefit ourselves by, you know, getting our names out there in other ways other than social media or coaching people in person, but to be able to help other people share their stories and share their experiences and how they came to be who they are and what exactly shaped them and shaped their actions to be able to get to the point they were at. And it's been a blessing. You know, I think you learn so much from talking, and we were talking about this before the podcast as well. Like, you learn so much by talking to different people with different viewpoints and, you know, different experiences. And really what I've come to learn is like, if you want to be successful, right, in whatever fashion, it doesn't have to be with money. You don't have to be a millionaire or a billionaire. If you want to be successful financially or with your profession or in your relationships or, you know, just on your own, like, you have to stop talking and you have to start doing, right? You have to remove that fear from yourself, right? That fear of, oh, well, what if this person thinks something of me? Or if I say the wrong thing, am I going to offend somebody? Or, you know, again, you don't have to be a, you know, a-hole, but you got to be yourself, right? And you got to remove that doubt and remove that fear of, I'm not going to be the person I think I can be because other people think a certain way of me, right? Or I don't hit this level of success, but instead focus on the processes that are going to get you to where you inevitably want to go, right? And if you can stay focused on that plan of action, it might divert a little bit, but as long as you make assessments and you make tweaks along the way, right? And you stay true to who you are, you're going to get to where you want to go eventually, right? With a little patience and a whole lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm. And that brings me to my next question. You alluded to it, and that's your relationship with fear. And you've come up against that all throughout your life, all throughout your journey. Starting with, well, not starting, but when that gym teacher came up to you in the hallway and said, "Why don't you come into the gym?" You could have been overcome by fear and said no. When you felt that calling to go to university at Syracuse and FMA and pursue your fitness dreams, you could have been held back by fear. You could have been held back by fear by quitting, by leaving Equinox and trying it out on your own. You could have been held back by fear by staying in your comfort zone of Miami, but instead you've moved to Puerto Rico. And then again, fear maybe have held you back from starting that podcast, which you've at last got off the ground and it's thriving. So let's talk about your relationship with fear, something that we all come up against. And how have you overcome that, and how do you use it to your advantage?
Well, I don't run away from it. Number one, right? I think too many people too often tend to see fear coming their way, right? They see that apprehension, that question of, well, what if? And instead of facing it and really taking stock in why you're going through those emotions that you are, they just try to avoid it altogether, right? They don't like being uncomfortable. But that's really, and again, it's going to sound pretty cliche. I'm throwing these all around, but you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, that's where the sweet spot is. That's where the honey is, right? The golden egg is really in becoming resilient through those doubts, through those fears. And it's not an easy thing at all, right? But at the end of the day, if you want to get to a certain level, you have to go through some hardship. You're not going to be able to smell the roses all the time. I wish that was possible for everybody, right? Like, we could just snap our fingers and have what we want in front of us, like a genie. If anybody listening or watching this has a genie and you want to let me borrow him or her, feel free. I'll give you my address and you can ship the magic lamp to me. But until that day comes, I need to understand that, through the fire comes some great rewards, right? And again, understanding that there's not so much a plan B, but I've been through a lot of tough times, right? I know what it's like to be, at a relative rock bottom comparative to where I thought I needed to be. I grew up in a trailer park. I saw a ton of blue collar people working really, really hard for not a whole lot of money, but I would say across the board, they were relatively happy. So I was able to understand that if I, could see my past and see where I came from, right? Well, then whatever happened in the future can't be, and again, for lack of a better term, worse than that, right? Like living paycheck to paycheck, having lights and water not be able to turn on at times, and, cooking soup off of a kerosene heater. Like, having gone through those experiences and being bullied as a kid, really made me resilient to understand, well, like, if I can handle that, then whatever is in my future, I'm more than capable of overcoming, right? I might struggle at, like, even now, right? Like, with the podcast, even with my business, with the new program, like, there are doubts in my head of, well, what if people don't really find benefit in this, right? Even though I've gotten some great testimonials already, and people have lost a ton of weight and are more confident and all this stuff, right? There's always that little doubt in your head of, like, well, what if it's going to fail? It's like, well, okay, well, then I know that wasn't the route I need to take, and I can try a different one, or I can just slightly adjust that one and see if that works, right? Because, and I mentioned failure earlier. I don't think failure is a bad thing. I think failure is one of the best assets we can have. And that's why I always recommend that people fail fast, because the faster you can fail, the faster you learn what's not going to work for you. And you can no longer worry about those things. And you can focus on some of the other things that might actually move the needle and actually help you get to where you want to go, right? So if you can do those things, I think you're off to a tremendous start. Just understand that it's not linear. It's going to be some rocky times, and no matter where you are, no matter how much money or success or fame or what health you have, there are always going to be challenges, and it's just about accepting those challenges, taking them head on, and understanding that you're not on an island with this. Tons of people have gone through these things, and sometimes if you need help, go get that help. And that's what I'm here to do for a lot of other people when it comes to their health and their mindset.
Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned that little voice in your head that kind of gives you that doubt. And Stephen Pressfield, he refers to this as resistance, that negative force in the world that keeps us from fulfilling our dreams. And it's something that we come up against every day in some aspect or another. So how do you encounter resistance? What is your strategy? That voice that tells you, oh, I'm just going to stay in bed another 5 minutes longer, or, oh, I'll put this off for another week. How do you deal with that resistance, and how do you advise your clients to deal with that resistance?
Tell them to get it done, right? Like if you want to stay in bed 5 minutes later or 10 minutes, or you want to hit that snooze button, put your feet on the ground and stand up, right? Remove yourself from that resistance, right? Push through that resistance, essentially, not necessarily remove, but push through that resistance, right? Understand that, again, you have to keep everything in perspective. If I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z, well, what is it going to take me to get there? And if I have to ask myself a question of like, is this worth it? If the answer is no, then I don't do it. If the answer is yes, then I do it. Is it worth it for me not to hit the snooze button so I can wake up and make sure I work out before I start my workday? Yes. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm getting up, right? One of the business coaches that I'm currently working with, they always have a story that they like to tell, and I'd love to share it with you and your audience, right? It's I believe it's a Stanford rowing team, right? And their whole mantra for one season, starting in the off season, was, is it going to make the boat go faster, right? Their whole focus was like, we just want to win races. And in order to win races, we have to make the boat go faster, right? So every action that they took, right, throughout that entire year, leading up to the season and going through the season, led them back to that sole question: is it going to make the boat go faster? If the answer was yes, they took action and went about their day, right, going forward with it. If the answer was no, they didn't do it, right? Because their sole goal was, is it going to make the boat go faster? And you can utilize that in your own life, right? By just saying, like, I want to lose 30 pounds. Okay, is eating this piece of pizza going to help me lose 30 pounds? If it helps you just get over the hump of like not eating pizza for the next week, then okay, eat the slice of pizza. Don't, restrict yourself. But if the answer is no, right? If it really isn't going to help you, then just don't do it. Stay focused on your goals, right? Stay focused on your goals and understand that it's about patience in progress.
Yeah. So how does balance come into play here? Because in terms of nutrition, I heard you talking recently about how, like, you're not, in terms of nutrition, you're not about eating broccoli and chicken for every meal, because doing
boring.
so, what's that?
That's boring.
Yeah. So that will make your boat go faster though. So how do you, in terms of just nutrition and someone that's their focus, how do you allow yourself to have that pizza every now and then? How do you attain that balance?
Well, I think first and foremost, it starts with what we really label food as, right? Like I really don't like the phrase food is fuel for your body, right? Because food is so much more than that, right? Food is about connection. It's about community. It's about culture. There's so many other aspects of life that really go into what food actually is, right?
Yeah.
And when you take that away from somebody and just tell them, no, it's just fuel for your body, you're taking away a lot of the benefit that food can actually bring. Again, right, to use that word, abundance that food can actually bring to you. And again, it just goes back to, what are your goals, right? And what is your timetable of accomplishing them, right? But again, that even if it's like, okay, I need to eat healthy every single day because I am, morbidly obese and I do have serious health issues and I have to take this seriously, right? You don't have to restrict yourself to a few food items, right? Which a lot of people do. They start these crash diets where I'm going to go on a 7-day juice cleanse. And the only thing I'm going to drink is watermelon juice for the first 3 days. And then I'm going to add in a little cayenne pepper, but no food. It's like, you're not setting yourself up for long-term success, right? Because subconsciously, the things that we don't allow ourselves to have for long periods of time are the things we crave more of, right? And sometimes it actually is better for you just to have that slice of pizza, right? Again, so you can get over that mental hurdle of like, oh, but this food is bad for me, or this food is good for me. There are no good and bad foods. There are just some foods that are more optimal for where you are in life right now and for where you want to go than others, right? The pizza's not bad. You eat that slice of pizza and it takes you an extra week to lose the 30 pounds. So be it, right? Like your life doesn't really change because you lost 28 pounds instead of 30 pounds, right? You still accomplished quite a bit. But when, again, right, I always like to bring things back to our mindset and what's between our ears. When you start to connotate when you start to have these connotations about food as being good or bad, you get these psychological responses that either bring on a sense of relaxation when we hear the word good, right? Or we hear the word great, and a sense of fear and anxiety when we hear the word bad, right? And that anxiety and that fear isn't going to help you get to where you want to go, right? Just as much as that at times that relaxation isn't going to help you where you need to go. Sometimes you do need a little bit of anxiety to push yourself on the gas pedal, right? But when we can remove those and we just think of food as, this culmination of our experiences and how we need to live our lives so that we can continue to make the improvements we want to make and continue to live a life of abundance, right? Whether it be with the different variety of foods that we're eating, right? Or the variety of experiences that we get with others through the act of eating food, right? I think both of those things are extremely important and integral towards having sustainable long-term success.
Yeah. So you've mentioned many challenges you've had to overcome. So issues with self-confidence, bullying, being overweight, growing up in like a less wealthy background. Through it all, through your whole journey, what would you say has been the biggest challenge you've encountered on your path, and how did you overcome that?
Oh, patience, man. Patience, right? Like I want things to get done now. I am one of those people who, like, if I set my mind to something, I'm going to be relentless in my ability to go out there and get it done, right? I will sacrifice almost anything in my life to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. But that's not easy, right? That comes with its own downfalls, right? You tend to, diminish or hurt your relationships with others when you're solely focused on specific goals, or even the relationship with yourself. So finding the patience to understand that, as long as I put forth the work that I set in the plan that I established, or that, the team I have around me establishes, we're going to be okay, but it doesn't necessarily all need to be done right this second, right? There's benefit in being patient, right? Whether it be timing wise, right? We talked about opening doors, right? Maybe you need to wait for that one door to open that's going to put you in a totally different environment, right? That's actually, a much more enjoyable one and a much more prosperous one for you, right? And if you're so quick to get things done, you're not going to be able to open that door or walk through that open door. And again, right back to like the mental side of things, like it's a lot of added anxiety to like think I have to get this all done in a week, when maybe that's not a realistic expectation to be setting. So patience is huge. And, again, I think when you can take a step back and allow, not always be reactive, but allow things to come to you more often, like, and be more precise with the decision-making that you have and the actions you take, it tends to clear a lot of the doubt and clear a lot of the misnomers that you may have about the path that you actually need to take.
Well, thank you for that. So much wisdom shared so far in this conversation. And that leads me to my next question. And that is, through all of the highs and lows that is this life, what has been your number one greatest lesson that you've learned thus far that you feel called to share with us right now?
It's about having quality people around you, right? Life, you can have all the amount of money in the world. You can have the Ferraris, you can have the mansion, you could, be able to travel the world. But if you're traveling alone, if you're living in that mansion alone, if you're driving that Ferrari alone, if you have $1 billion and no one to spend it with, right? It's meaningless. And it will get you nowhere, right? So it's all about the people around you and the people that you uplift as you go through your journey, right? It really is, And I'm not saying that circle of people has to be thousands. It could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 2, right? But take care of those that want to help you along your journey, right? And need help along their journey as well. And enjoy those moments with them, right? Because again, time is so limited. And at any given time, it could be gone, right? So enjoy those experiences with other people, right? Because you never know what's going to happen, good and bad. And, without those people around you, right? Human nature is about connection with others, right? That's how we survive this long on planet Earth, is by, connecting and networking and helping each other. And we can't lose sight of that.
So speaking of time and connection, I'm really grateful for this connection of ours, but we do have some time constraints here, and I want to be respectful of your time. And that brings me to my final 2 questions. These final 2 questions I ask to all guests, and then it's now time for that. So here we go. The first question, in 3 words, how would you describe the experience you were having on this earth?
That's a great question. 3 words. Pursuit of happiness, right? Pursuit of happiness. It changes time and time again. It changes every couple of years for me, but pursuing pure happiness, right? In its truest form.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And now the final question. We've played around with time. We rewound time and we explored your origin story. And I truly believe we're all magicians and we could transform reality. So I'm going to transport us into the future. I'm going to hit a fast forward button, and then I'm going to bring us alongside an 85-year-old Josh Evans. What does that 85-year-old Josh Evans, what does he look like? Where is he? Who is he surrounded by? And what is the impact that you have left on all those you've connected with?
I mean, hopefully I'm, still strong, mobile, moving around, staying active in the woods somewhere, through and through. I'm still a country boy from upstate New York. So, getting me back into the woods would be, in some log cabin would be, my ideal dream at 85, surrounded by my friends, my business partners, my family, those that were really there along the way. To see me go through this journey. I would love to have them there at the end of it. And I think part of that, right, is helping others, helping those with the gifts that I have, right? And that right now tends to be, along the lines of health and fitness, right? So helping those other people that seek the help, right? Help them figure out how they can make their life more optimal so that they can go out there and accomplish their goals and their dreams, right? Like that, on my deathbed, I'll be super happy with the life that I've lived.
Beautiful. So I just want you to take a few more moments here with this 85-year-old Josh. And if you want, you can close your eyes. And I just want you to really feel what this is like to embody this 85-year-old Josh living in the woods. You can have smell that fresh air, a warm fire, surrounded by family, friends. You've helped so many in terms of health and fitness, and you've truly lived a wealthy life, not only in terms of financial success, but wealthy in all thy dimensions, wealthy in health, wealthy in friends, and everywhere in between. So stay with this 85-year-old Josh. Feel what that feels like to have attained this place. And then I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back to the now, the infinite now. And this 85-year-old Josh, he sends you a message. What does he whisper in your ear?
you did it. You know, you can do it, more importantly, right? Like it's yours for the taking. Be smart about who you surround yourself with. Be smart about the actions you take, but don't let the fear of taking those actions, of surrounding yourself around those people, diminish your ability to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. This is it. You're doing it. We're doing it.
100%.
We're in it.
Yeah.
We're in
That's what
it.
it's all about, man. It's about the experience. You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah. First, I just want to say thank you, Derek. You know, obviously, like I said before, we were able to connect in Austin, and you know, I really resonated being around you. Just your energy and you know the type of positivity and the type of intention that you're putting out into your community and into the world. You know, it does rub off on a lot of people, even though we were able to spend a long weekend together. You know, it's one of those things that I'll never forget about. And I want to say thank you for allowing me to come out on the podcast and share a little bit about my story. For anybody that wants to learn more or follow me on social media, you can follow me everywhere: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at Coach Josh Evans. I have a link in my bio if you want to sign up for the wait list for the Active Made Easy program. It'll completely change your lives on a multitude of levels. You just got to put forth that intention, that hard work that you and I have been talking about here on the podcast. I respond to my DMs. I respond to any questions or messages that you send me. So don't be afraid. I'm a real person, just like the rest of you. I'm not a robot. So I promise you, if you message me, I will respond to you. It really is me. And I'm here to help you guys all achieve the life you want to live.
Excellent. And to close every episode, we bring our fist into the winner's circle, a choice that we could all join. Boom.
My man.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Wishing you all a beautiful day.